The chat box is your friend. Type in there. Good evening to everyone. Yeah. Okay, so everyone, okay, first of all, sorry for my voice. I'm just, my nose is just a little bit stuffed. Okay, that's it. I just have a bit of cough. So that's why I'm gonna sound a bit different. That's it. So, just, yeah, I'll start the class. So before we actually start, if there are any questions you guys wanna ask us or something, so you can ask us directly, or there are some concepts that we have, not covered yet. So we'll just cover them and then go straight to our course project. Okay. So just in case you have any doubts, let me know in the comments, or we'll just start. JavaScript. Seriously, JavaScript. I don't think I was teaching JavaScript. I guess I was teaching Python, right? Yeah. So let's get started. So first of all, there are some concepts that we left. The first would be an array or a list. So the first would be a list. List is not basically a data type. It's a data structure. So there are multiple data structures in Python, like lists, set, dictionaries, tuples, and all. So right now we did skip the list, and list is quite useful. So we'll just first of all check out a list. So if you're from a programming background, you might recognize list to be something like an array or something. If you're not, so let's see what a list is. So a list basically looks something like this. Okay. So a list is basically something that starts and ends with a square bracket, and in between these, there are values. There are comma separated values. Okay. So let's say that there are these values. Sorry. Yeah. So it looks something like this. As a definition, a list would be a heterogeneous collection of data. A heterogeneous collection of data. Uh, if you might have learned something called an array, that is similar to a list, that would be a homogeneous collection of data. So heterogeneous basically means that it can take multiple types of data. Right now, I'm only passing integers, but I can also pass something like this. Even I can pass a list as a part of the list. Okay. So this is how a list looks like. So okay, you might understand that these are comma separated values or something in a square bracket. Big deal, right? So now there are certain properties of the list. So I'll just create a better list for you guys. Let's just work with this one. Okay. Now there are certain properties of this list that we can access. The first would be indexing. So instead of actually, just printing the list like we did with other integers and all, we can even access its single values. For example, suppose I just want this first value. I want to know what the first value of this list is. So I can type in x of 0, and it will give me 1, because 1 is the first value. If I type in x of 1, you see I get 4. Now the reason for that is that most of the programming languages actually start from 0. So 1 right here has an index of 0, 4 has an index of 1, 8 has an index of 2, and 0 has an index of 3. By index, I mean the position it has in the list. Okay. So that's how a list looks like. So for example, I wanna access the 8. So I could say something like, now you see I get 8 because indeed 8 is the second element start, because the counting starts from 0. Okay. Now there are some methods on the list. So if you're using Jupyter Notebook, you could type a dot and then hit the tab button, I guess, and you'll get all these different methods that are available for the list. So we could use a method called sort, and it will automatically sort the list. So if I check it out, now we see that first earlier my list was not sorted. Now it's sorted. So it's sorted in ascending order, right? You could even reverse it. So now you see earlier it started from 1, then 4, then 8 and 0. Now it's just the opposite. It's just the reverse. How 4 comes in array of 2. 4 doesn't come in array of 2, right? I guess 4 came in 1, the first position, right? Because this right here is the index 0. For you, it might be the first index, but according to my computer or according to Python, counting should always start from 0. So this is the 0th index. This is the first index. This is the second index, and this is the third index. Okay. Now, yesterday we already discussed about errors, right? So let's actually see what errors you could come across right now. So according to you guys, what would be the length of this list? The length basically refers to how many elements are there. So can anyone tell me what's the length of the list right now? I guess it's 4, right? So because there are 4 elements, and so you can easily figure out how, like, what would be the indexes. If the length is 4, then the indexes would go from 0 to 3. If the length had been 5, the indexes would have gone to 0 to 5. So basically the indexes go from 0 to length minus 1. I hope that's clear, right? Now what if I want to access an index that's not actually present? So the length is 4. What if I want to access 5, x of 5? So now you see it throws me an error, index error to be precise, and telling me that list index is out of range. It had a range of 0 to 3, and I'm trying to access 5. So it throws me an error. And you can't even keep this empty because then it's a syntax error. Okay. You can directly print out lists like this. They are quite easy. Now, another thing that you could do is just to find out the length. We have this inbuilt length or len function that tells you what the length of an iterable is. So if I do something like this, I get 4 because there are 4 elements. If I append like another element in here, it says that's 5, right? So that's something we can do with using lists. There are all these inbuilt methods that you can see. If you press a dot and then press tab, then you'll see all these methods. You can try out some of these methods. The index method basically tells you the index of a certain value. So let's say 0. Sorry, 0. So it says 3, right? It returns 3. Now what does the 3 mean? So it says that 0 in my list has a first occurrence of 3. So let's check that out. It's 0. Okay, it's 1. It's 2. It's 3, right? So 0 indeed occurs or is present in the third element. Now what if I had another 0? It would still tell me 3. The reason is it takes in the first occurrence in account. Okay. If I do it again, let's see. So it always takes in the first occurrence in account. Okay, right? The another method that we could use on this list would be, let's say, insert. So Now insert, you pass a value, but you also need to pass a what's that called, position. Okay, now you see, if I print out my list, it goes something like this. So 9, the second argument has been or has been inserted in first position. So it's 0 and it's 1, right? So it's in the first position, and rest all the elements have been shifted accordingly. So you could have done something like this as well. So now you see 9th is is indeed in the 0th position, and rest all the elements have been shifted accordingly. Okay. There's also this pop method that basically removes an element from the end. You could push something in the list that would push it in the front of the list. So you can go and play with all these inbuilt methods that lists have. So, and the last thing that I want to tell you about lists would be, let's say I have a list of something like this. Okay, I could easily iterate through it using a for loop. So for, let's say, variables or var, it won't make a difference, Mohit, if the number could be multiple times in there. It doesn't matter. It would just act the way it's acting right now. Nothing special. So for var in, let's say, x, just the way we did it with strings, I could do something print, let's say x, print var. So now you see I get all these, I can access all these elements individually. It's just a naming convention. It's really easy to write x, right? That's why. There's another way of accessing the list. That this would be the first way. There's another way. So I could say for I in range. Now I could use this length function, length of x, and now I can print, let's say, x of I. Yeah, you can use any alphabet. Actually, you could a valid variable name can be alphanumeric actually. So you can have alphabets and numbers. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you never start a variable with a number first. So this 1q is not a valid variable, but q1, q2, q21, q1, 2q or something would be. You can use any variable that you want of any length. You could even use a word for that. Like you could even use a name, right? Add numbers to it. It could be alphanumeric. It's not a problem. So there's this second way that we can access the lists, right? Any questions till now about the lists? It just took 10 minutes, so I hope it's fine. We are on track right now. Okay. And the second concept that we haven't covered yet is lambda functions. So what is a lambda function? Lambda functions, as you might hear, it sounds something like a function. It has function in its name, right? So lambda functions are just these one-liner functions, you could say, that you can use to do easy stuff. So let's say that we had this add method. I'm just gonna create it real quick. So let's say add, it takes an n1 comma n2 and then returns you n1 plus n2, right? And then when you add it, let's say p equals to add 10 comma 20, and then you try to print p, you get 30, right? It's really simple. That's how it works. So there's this another way of doing it, and that would be way simpler that you can do it. So that would be using a lambda function. Now, instead of using this function right here, let's see what a lambda function does. So a lambda function looks something like this. It takes first of all, we need to write the lambda keyword. So I write lambda, then I pass in the arguments, let's say n1 comma n2, and with a colon, I specify what exactly it has to return. Lambda functions always return something. Okay, lambda functions always return something. So I could say something like n1 plus n2, right? Now you see it looks something like this. Now why does that happen? Because now p is a function that we can use, and I can now print, sorry, yeah, and now I can print something like 10 comma 20 directly. So now my p is equals to a function, right? And it's way easier than writing all this code. It's just a single liner. You just pulled out a single liner, right? So that's how lambda functions work. Lambda functions are just these one line of functions that you can use. So they're really useful. A, when you need to pass functions or create functions anonymously, when you don't want to write this code, and when you're lazy like me. So that's when the lambda functions really shine in. Okay. Now, how can you? What was the question again? How can you get a list from user? Okay. In order to get a list from user, there are multiple ways. The first would be use the append or the push method. So let's say I have a list like this, and then let's say I want to append 10 elements to a list. So I could say for I in range, let's say 10. I'm going to tell you to input something. So let's say n equals to, let's input a number right now. Input. Just for simplicity, I'm going to reduce it to 5, right? Okay. Now you input it and then you can append it. So x dot append, let's say n. So I could say, oh, sorry, and let's at the end print n, print x. So now you see all the values have been appended to x. That would be the first way. Okay. Now there's this easier way you can do it, not suggested though, but just in case you have already, practice for competitive programming, there's this way that you can use. So you could use something like list map I guess this is the exact syntax. Let's just check this out. Oh, and let's also print out text to be sure. So now I can do something like, so now you see I can directly append all this to a list. So there's this second syntax that you can use, anyone that you like. This would help you take an input in a single line, so it would be a one liner. And the previous one that I told you, using a for loop, so that time you would have a control, right? Map function, when you have something like this, map function by default converts it to an integer, right? You could have written something like int input and strip and split it. Splitting basically means, instead of getting 1 2 3 1 2 4 6 and 8 something like this, it basically takes this, removes any extra spaces that you might have added, or the Python environment might have added, and then basically splits it to numbers, and then map just basically converts them into an integer. So the first argument could even have been a lambda function. So using a lambda function, we could have even changed the values, right? That's when lambda function is useful as well. But that's kind of beyond the scope of this webinar. But yeah, instead of just getting 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 6 and 8, we could have even multiplied them with 2 or something, done something like that. Okay. So now let's get back to our lambda functions real quick. And you could do it something much better like this. You can have multiple, let's say, arguments in lambda function. So you could have a comma b comma c, and then all you need to do is instead of writing a return specifically, you could do something like a plus b plus c, and then you could write something like 1 comma 2 comma 3. So it prints out 6, right? For a course project, let me show you what exactly we're trying to build. Yeah. So this is the first build that we'll be trying. Lambda is just basically a keyword that lets you build one line of functions or anonymous functions. So this is what we are trying to build. So player one enters a position. You see the X has been appended there. Okay, let me try to zoom in a bit. It's not happening. Right. Now if I place one, you see I can I append a 0 in here. If player one tries to now access place one, you see it says position occupied. I can go to something like 2. So this is basically a tic-tac-toe game that we have built. So let's say 4. Player one is let's say is stupid enough to do something like this. Now when he enters, so you see it's 0 0 0 right here. So it says player 2 wins. Opening Python shell was very simple. You need to search for IDLE either in your start menu or in your launchpad or whatever you are using, right? And then you would find it. So this is how the course project kind of looks like. And this is what we are gonna try to build. A basic tic-tac-toe game for right now. And if time permits, we could even jump to, let's say something like this. If only, that's only possible if time permits, but we could even then, go to something like this. So it's basically a GUI version for this. Okay. ID stands for Integrated Development Environment. Right. So this basically is what we are going to try to build. So let's start building it. So first of all, what I want you guys to do is let's create a board. Let's create a board for our game function, right? For a game. So I could say a board, and it's equal to a list. So now here's this shorthand operator that I could use for list right now. So it would be for let's say print. So now you see this is this shorthand operator using which I'm populating my list, and then once I'm printing the board, it's a list of zeros, right? It's a simple list of zeros. You can, if it's not visible to you directly, then you can search in your start menu. You would find it. Dave. So now this is the shorthand operator. You could have used anything. Let's say 1. So it would have appended 1 to your list. It's a pretty simple way to pre-populate your list if you're creating one, to initialize it directly. So right now, here's what I'm doing. I'm just appending a string of 0, let's say. Now, how many times this loop matters? So I'm appending it 9 times. Let's say I would have wanted to append it 100 times. So it would have done that, right? It's just a shortcut again. Any question how actually build the list inline using the shorthand using the shortcut? Okay. And now let's create a function. Oh, okay, you can get it. See, let's say we have an array, and initially, if you take a tic-tac-toe game in consideration, let me always keep this open first. So if you keep this tic-tac-toe game in consideration, you would see that initially the board is empty, right? So let's suppose that two players are any volunteer that who would like to help me? Anyone who would like to help me, build this game? Okay. Just suggest your could you just type could you guys type in your name in there? Okay, I see Dave. So yeah, Dave, thanks. So let's say that Dave and me are playing this game, right? Initially, when Dave draws the tic-tac board for me, you see that the board would be empty, right? There would be no marks. So that's what I'm trying to do. Initially, I want my board to be empty, or by empty I mean it should not belong to anyone. So that's why I'm populating my board with something like a zero. Now, I could have done it using a for loop. I could have done it something like for I in, let's say, range, then 9. Then I could have done let's say board board dot append 0. Okay. Right, and it would have given me the same output. Okay, let me just change it so that you can actually see that the output changes. So I could do something like this using the append method, right? Now, instead of lining all these two lines, I could directly, write that in one line saying the value that you want to be pre-populated with, and then a for loop. So for I in range 9. So it gives me the same output. You could even write I in here, and you would see that the board gets filled with something like this. So you could use I, but in our case, we just need this. Okay. Now we need a function to draw our board every time, right? Let's create a function. Let's call it draw board. That's how a function looks like. And all we need to do is print. And basically what it does is, if you will see, that it kind of prints my board out there, right? It kind of prints my board out there. So let's see how that looks. Right now, even this 0 is just a placeholder. I will later change it with a space. It's so that you can actually understand what's happening with my board. So I'll be using an F string. Drawboard is basically a function that I'm creating right now. So now that's how my board would look, right? Sorry. Okay. Board of 1. And backslash T. Let's add another board. And I'm going to copy it. So there's this handy little trick that you can use. Let's remove the indentation first. 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 6, 7, and 8. Okay, let's see how it actually looks like then. So let me call this function. Now you see it looks something like this. The board has taken a bit of shape, some kind of shape right now. Now there's another thing. Let's also add these little. Okay. So let's also add these little lines in here for a reference. So let's see how many lines should be there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. I know it won't make a lot of sense right now. So just bear with me and I'll let you know what exactly is happening in here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. So this is how my board looks right now. So, and draw board is basically a function that I can use to draw my board multiple times. I've already used an F string with multiple lines. So I'm printing multi-line. Okay. That's how my draw board looks like. And you see it's already pre-populated with 0. Now, if I change the 0 to a space and run it, you see initially that my board would be empty, right? That's exactly what I want. Initially my board would to be empty, right? Now the second thing that I want to do is let's I'm going to comment this out. Now the second thing that I want to do is set some variables. So let's say turn equals to true, TRUE. Let's say turn equals to true. So I guess I was playing with Dave, right? Dave. So I would like to say that whenever based on this turn value, if it's true, then it's Dave's turn. If it's false, then it's my turn. Okay, so turn basically indicates whether it's Dave's turn or not, right? So since Dave would be playing with me, so and he would start. Let's say he starts with X. So Dave's sign would be X, and my sign would be O accordingly, right? So the turn would be true. That means it's Dave's turn. The sign would be X. Now, which player is Dave? Let's say player equals to 1. Player 1 basically tells me that it's Dave. So Dave is my player 1. So it's his turn. So turn equals to true. It's his sign. So the sign is equals to X by default. And I'll also say that the game over. Let's take this variable game over equals to false. Because initially when I actually start the game, it's not over, right? It's only over when someone wins or it's a tie. Only then it's over. And let's say count equals to 0. Now I'll tell you what all these means. So I let me add some comment. So right now player is my player 1. True means it's player 1's turn. Player 1's turn. Sign would be okay, player 1's say sign is, let's say, always X in our game. Initially the game is not over. Take it to here. So I'm just adding these comments in here. That's nothing important actually, just so that so for a better understanding of for you guys. Initially, the game is not over. Okay. And the last thing that I want to make sure is and you guys could help me in here. If I have just begun the games, could you let me know how many moves we have made, like how many moves have they made and how many moves have I made, if it's just the beginning of the game, if the game just started, we only drew the board right now. So how many moves in total have been made? At most we can make 9 moves, right, for each to fill in each square. But what if it's just the beginning? How many moves would we have made? Hopefully it's zero, right? So initially moves made equals to zero, right? That's exactly the logic I'm implementing right now. So now let's write another function in here. That would be a function to get the get the input from my user. Now even the input kind of def is basically a keyword that we use to define functions, right? Just like you would have used something like a void or an int specifying the return type in other programming languages. In Python, to tell Python that it's going to be a function, a custom defined function, you need the use to def keyword. Now let's say def get input. So I'm gonna need all these variables. Now one thing that you need to keep in mind: these variables have been defined outside my functions, right? These variables, this player, turn, count, sign, all these variables have basically been defined outside my function. So how do I actually get access to them inside my function? Anyone? Any layman suggestion? How do we get access to them inside the function? Anyone? Any idea? Any random guess is fine. I don't expect you to know this because that's why you would be here. So any random guess how to access these variables inside this function? I know I haven't taught that because that's what I'm gonna do right now, right? Anyone in the chat, you guys could let me know. I would love if it's interactive because this is something it's hard to wrap your head around. But once you actually get the hang of it, uh, you'll be it would be way easier for you guys to use it in Python. Okay, should we define function above these variables? No, even defining the function above these variables would won't actually help. Name of game, you could it's basically tic-tac-toe, so you don't actually need to do that, but let's see what happens. Now my question, Dave, was that these variables are actually defined outside the function, so how do I get access to them inside this function? So they have been defined in a global scope, right? I want it to be in a local scope of this function. Anything that is inside this indentation is basically its local scope. Because at the end, if I create another variable, if I say something like count equals to 1 in here, it won't actually get access to this count. Rather, it will create its own variable called count. That would be a function's local variable. So using it directly with the variable name is not feasible. Neither are access specifiers. There's this particular keyword because this is a common problem that you might come across in Python. So those guys have already solved it for us. They want us to use something called a global keyword. Now global keyword, and when I say global count, now it tells Python that this count, now whenever I write count in this function, it basically points to this count over here. It basically points to a variable name count declared globally, right? So that's exactly what we are doing right now. So I need access to all my global variables. because you'll see that I'll be using these variables a lot. So let's say if they've just made a move. So let's say that they've just made a move. So now the player would be player 2. The turn would be false. The sign would be 0. The game over depends. So all these values have to be changed, right? We have to manage a state in our game as well. That's exactly what we are doing using these global keywords. Okay. Now I check if turn, turn, if turn. Since turn could only have a value of either true or false, so if turn is true, so basically it means that if it is Dev's turn, I would say that player equals to 1 and sign equals to x, right? Else, if it's not Dev's turn, so if the turn value is false, so that means it's not Dev's turn. Initially, since whenever it's true, it's Dev's turn, the sign would be x. But if it's not, then it would be my turn. So the player would be player equals to 2, sorry, 2, and the sign would be equals to 0, or whatever you want to call it. Into 10, no, should we type? No, you have to type 0 only, or 1 to 10. You could actually go for 0 to 8, I guess. Yeah, you could actually go for 0 to 8 because those would be the positions, right? So now that is something that we can do right now. Apart from that, now once I know whose turn it is, I can ask for an input, right? I can ask you guys to enter an input, so it would be an integer. And once it's created, we'll actually see how it totally works. So you could, I would like if you could just wait for a second and let me write it out for you guys. Now the first, now when I take over the input, the first thing that I have to keep in mind is that you don't cross the limit. Like I don't want that index error, right? You can only type in something from 0 to 8 because at the end my length would be 8. Sorry, length would be 9. So the indexing would go from 0 to 8, right? So I don't want you guys to, mess up the game or break the game right like that. So first of all, I'm going to check if my position is less than 0 or my position is greater than, let's say 8. I want to print something like this. Print invalid position. Okay. Now, else if the second condition would be, yeah. So now the second condition would be that if that if that part of the board is already filled, let's say I enter 1, and now player 2 also tries to enter 1. I don't want him to overwrite, right? That would be cheating. So I want something like this. The position is occupied. So now for that, what I need to do is I need to check if board of position, the position that you entered is not equal to a blank space because my board is initially filled with a blank space, right? So the if it's empty, it's going to be a blank space, right? So if it's not, equals to a blank space, I want to say position occupied. And at last, if all these conditions have been satisfied, I would just return this position. That's it. That's it. That's how get input does. It just takes the player in account. So if it decides either it's player 1 or player 2, and then takes your position input, takes the position that you want to place your sign on, and then checks if it's a valid position or not, if that position has already been taken or not, and then based on that, it basically returns the position. If it's a valid position, it returns that. Now the main logic that we need is to define another function. Now what this function is going to do, if some value has been returned, let's say from get input, then we would actually append it to a board and display the board. So let's do that, and once we do that, we'll see how the game looks like right now. So I could do something like this. In the same way, I'll need all these global variables right now because I need access to them. So that would be count and player. I don't need the sign actually, I guess, because I don't need to change the sign. So, okay, I do need the turn though. And the first thing that I want to do is draw the board. So draw, okay, sorry. And I want to draw the board first because this is what our main function, this would be our main function, the play turn function. That's what we are going to execute. Now I want to check out. Let me put a speed line in here as well. So how long do I want to play this game? I want to play until 9 moves have been made, right? Because once you have already crossed the threshold of 9 moves, there wouldn't be any place for you guys to enter something. So while count is not equals to 9, I want to say that position equals to get input. Now you see there are these two functions that have this position variable, but they are not interlinked because it's only in the local scope. That's exactly what I was saying. This is in the local scope of this function. Now you guys could help me right now. Different code games could have different code, right? It basically depends on your logic and how you want to write it. So now my this get input only returns yeah, you can make different games using multiple codes. That's fine. This is how I encountered the problem. There could you could even come up with something that is way shorter than my code, right? So now let's check this out. So my get input only returns the position if it's a valid position. If it's not a valid position, it won't return. It doesn't return the position. And what happens when a function doesn't return something? What is the default value? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm teaching right now. Is right. I'm teaching you the logic. Once you find out the logic behind a problem, you could coding it is really simple. You just need to remember the syntax for coding. But when it comes to solving a problem, you need the logic. Now, could you guys help me and let me know what was the default return value of a function? Anyone? The default return value of a function? I guess you guys remember that it was something as none, right? We already saw it when we discussed the function. So I would check if now the position is not none, is not none. Okay. So I'll say the count. Let's increase the count then. So count plus equals to 1. The board of position would be equals to the sign then, sign. The turn, turn. The turn would be equals to not of turn. So if it's true, it's going to be false. If it's false, it's going to be true. That's how it's going to be like. You could do something like this. It's just another shortcut. I'm going to call the draw board. Okay. Let's actually see how the code looks like right now. It's not perfect because we haven't finished it. But let's see how it actually looks like. You see, I get this prompt, enter a position. Let's enter 0, enter 1. So you see that my board is already being populated, right? With all these values. If I enter something like a 9, it says invalid position and then asks me to enter something again. So even if I enter 10 or something, it keeps on asking me. If I, okay, I guess I missed the code in here. Okay, what happened actually? Yeah, I guess I, okay. Okay, yeah, it's a code, right? So that's how my board looks like. Right, my game is now working and everything is being pre-populated. So that's a bonus. Now for the last thing, now to implement the winning logic, how do you we'll send it, I'll send it to you. Like we'll send all this code to you guys, right? Now for the winning logic, I need a function to check my win. And I need to check whether which sign won, right? So if it's a X or if it's a O, so which sign won actually. So now could you let me know how exactly you win in tic-tac-toe? How do you actually win this game? Let's say I have this board right here. So one would win if all these are same. If all these are same, like if it's a win in the rows, in the columns or diagonals, right? So I could say that if x of is this zeroth position, first position, and second position are same, and is equals to x, then x wins. If it's equals to O, then O wins, right? So for the horizontal check, let's say, so right now I'm going to implement this horizontal check. So if board of 0, something like this, EOARD, board of 0 equals to board of 1, and board of 1 equals to board of 2, and so if board of 0 equals to 1 and 1 equals to 2, so if those two are same and board of 0 equals to sign, that's only when x1, right? So even if they are same, there's a possibility that either O1, or like either they won or I win, right? So if it's Dave's sign, so if the sign is X, then I say that Dave actually won the game. If it's not, then I'm the one who wins the game, right? So let's do something like and board of, yeah, sorry, and board of 0 equals to sign. So that's when I would win. So I'll just have a variable equals to G equals to true. G is just a placeholder, a game variable that I want to return. So I would either return a true or a false, right? So, so right now I would, okay, sorry. Yeah. So right now I want to return whether someone won the game or not. Let me zoom out a bit. I hope it's visible now. In the same way, I'm going to put in an elif so that this is the first horizontal check. This would be the second horizontal check that I'm going to implement. Let me just put it in. Let me just copy it again. And now the rows would be different, right? So it would be 3, 4, 4 and 5. So I'm going to check for 4. and 5, and then say if it's 3. In the same way, I could say something like 6, 7, 7 and 8. Placeholder is just the name of this variable. You could have named it anything. I named it G because it doesn't actually matter. I just need to return either true or false. Right. And board of 0, not it's board of 6. The board of 6 equals to sign. So that's my first case for the horizontal one. Now let's check out the verticals one. Vertical. And I'll just keep on working with these LFs as well. So I'm not actually gonna come out of this LF right now. I don't need this one though. Now for the vertical ones, what do you think would be? So these are 036, 147 and 258, right? So let's actually do that. So it's 0, 3, 3 and 6. And let's say if it's 0. I'll make it 1. Yeah. And then the second one would be, it's 147, right? It's 1 equals to 4. The fourth and the seventh position are same. And the first position equals to sign. So you can take reference of this board right now. The third would be 2, then 5, then 5 and 8, and 2, right? And now there's one condition left, that would be the diagonals. So for the diagonals, I could just copy these two. Let me just copy these two. Type it in here. Now for the diagonals, if you see, it would be 0, 4 and 8. So it's 0, it's 4, it's 4 and it's 8. And the second diagonal would be 2, 4 and 6, right? So it's gonna be 2, it's gonna be 4, it's gonna be 4 and it's gonna be 6. I hope that's the diagonal 2, 4, 6. Yeah. It's 2. Now, if none of these conditions actually satisfy, so it would be not a win. So if none of these conditions satisfy, then G would be equals to false. This is what check-win does basically. Yeah, you can use okay. Now let's come back to this and see what we have done right now. We have written this huge function. Now let's see what it does. It's basically to check the win. So if I just want to see if someone has won the game or not, right? So let's say that Dave is claiming that he won. So what was Dave's sign? Let's say Dave's sign was X, right? So now I'm checking if board of 0 and board of 1 and board of 2. So if the first row, it all consists only of X. So if they are all equal, so board of 0 equals to board of 1 and board of 1 equals to board of 2. So basically these three values are equal. One. If they are filled, like let's say they're same, but they're not X, it's 0, then I would win, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing. So it's for the first row. I'm checking for 0 and 1. So I'm first checking these two. Then I'm checking these two. Right. So if they are, so that's basically checking all those three together. And then I'm also checking if it's equals to the one who claims the win. So if they said that he won, so board of 0 must be equals to sign. And since board of 0 equals to sign, and also board of 0 is equals to board of 1, so 1 would be X, even 2 would be X, right? That's how they wins. Same way I did for all these 2 rows and all 3 columns. So all these columns. That's all I did. I know it looks huge, but it's just this big huge if else ladder. And yeah, you can have multiple elifs, as many as you want. And that's exactly what I did, right? Still, do you guys still have questions? You can ask me. I would be happy to explain it to you again, because I know it looks huge and it might also confuse you a bit. But if you pay attention, it's really simple. All I am doing is that if one of these conditions is satisfied, I'm assigning a yeah. It's I know it's big. It's really a pain typing it again and again. So that's why I would share the code with you guys, right? It's really simple. The last thing I'm doing is that if any of these conditions are being satisfied, I'm saying that this g variable, a variable g, is true, and if none of these conditions are satisfied, I'm saying that g is false, right? And at the end, the last part that I need to do is I just need to return g. So basically, this function either returns true or false. So now let's get back to our drawboard function. We left it here. And now we know that we can actually append signs to the board. I can append signs to a board. Now let's also see if someone actually won the game or not. So if check win of the sign, so what would be the current sign? The one who is playing. If it's player 2, that see I'm already assigning the signs in here, right? I can get access to them in the function. So I could say sign, and then I want to say print, and let's use an f string. Player. And what was the value of the player? It was either 1 or 2, right? So I'm just going to print it something like this. Wins. That's it. So now if someone wins, I need to break out of the loop. So that's what I'm doing. I'm breaking out of the loop. I'm sending that end the while loop right here. And the last thing that I need to check is for the tie condition. So if count is equals to 9. So if 9 moves have been made and yet the check win of sign, the check win of sign is not true or is false, whatever you want to call it, or is false, then what I want to say, I want to say that the match has been tied. Now let's go through this function or this code again just once more, and then execute it and see. So initially I take a board that's just blank spaces, right? A board that only consists of some blank spaces. And then since me and Dave were playing it, and Dave was player 1, so here it is, player equals to 1, turn equals to true, sign equals to x. So that's all metadata for Dave. So all this when you start the game, the is always equals to player 1. So the first player starts. The turn true means basically Dave's turn. The sign x is the default sign that you start the game with. Initially the game is not over because it just began, and the number of moves made is 0 because we have drawn the board, no moves have been made. Then it's just a simple function draw board. So we use the def keyword to specify that we are creating a function, a custom function in Python, and then we use this print function with these multi-line so that we can print something to the next lines as well. Else I would have to use that end line and it would look weird. And I'm also use the f string to format it inside the board directly. Then there's this check win function. So there's this check win function, and this check win functions, as I explained earlier, only tells me if someone has won. The get input function is kind of complicated, and it's the first complicated function that we have encountered. So right now it gets access to the count, player, and the sign variable, and has the ability to change it. If I have not added global, it could only read it. Like I didn't actually add global board to this draw board function, so it can only read it, but it won't be able to change it. To be able to change it, that's when we need to global for a you could say for a read and write access. So now if I say if turn, so if turn basically means if it's true. If true, because by default the value of turn is true, player is 1 and sign is X, else player is 2 and sign is O. I prompt you for an input. I check if it's a valid input or not. And if it's a valid input, I return the position. Now let's come back to play turn. I get access to all these functions. Then I create this board because I had to create this board like I had to create this board. So I create this board then I check if count is not equals to 9. So if we have not made all the impossible moves. So if count is not equal to 1, I prompt you for an input. And if it's not if it's a valid input, so the return type or the return value is not none, I increase the count. I append it to the board. I switch the turn. So if it's true, it would be false. So if it was player 1, it would now be player 2 and all. Draw the board again. Check for a winning condition. If it's 1, I quit the game. If not, I continue. And I'm out of the loop. So once the value of count is equals to 9, and yet no one has actually won, I'll print that match has been tied. That's it. So Dave, would you be kind enough to play the game with me right now? So I guess it's your turn. So you could enter a number between 0 to 8, and let's play this. Okay, he says 7. You see, your value has actually been appended. 8 was this one. So I'll be a nice guy and just type in 0. Dave, it's your turn again. He says 8. Okay. So let's not let you win this easily, right? So I put it in here. Dave, what would be your next move, Dave? Just let's play, get it over with, right? Okay. So Dave says 4. Let's check it out. He says 4. That's great. So I'll enter 1. I know I could have entered in here. That's something that works on the console. Since this is the Jupyter notebook, it keeps on printing that. It's not a GUI, right? So that would be a clear screen if you use the. Okay. Um, let's just end the game right now. So you would see that it says player 2 wins. Why? Because these zeros. Yeah, Dave, the numbers, how it goes is this is the 0th index, this is the first index, this is the second index. Okay. It's 0, it's 1, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's how the indexes we took. Just a friendly reminder that since there are 9 indexes and the counting starts with 0. So that's something I wanted you guys to remember. Any questions? Or anyone else wants to play this, or any question regarding the game? Okay, it's fine. That's exactly what I did in here as well. Let's see the other one. Now this right here, this code right here. Yeah, Sangeeta, just a second. Yeah, I'll give you access to. I will send you the code. So now, if you see this code right here to implement the same logic, it implements the same logic, right? It's just a GUI based game, and we'll also send you the links to it down here. Yeah. So Sangeeta, would you be kind enough to play the game with me? So it's your turn. Yeah, Dev, you can leave. Himanshu, is there anything you want to tell them before we actually end it about the exams?
Yes, Ritam. So, guys, already many students have registered for the exams yesterday, and many of you left the meeting. So maybe you don't know that we are also having the examination, which will be conducted most probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, so it will be at 10 question multiple choice questions, and if you clear the exam by 40% of marks, so you will get an additional certificate for as certificate of merit. Okay, so you will be awarded with certificate of merit if you clear the exam, and there is just a nominal fee for the registration of examination, that is 49 rupees only. Okay, yesterday in the group we already circulated the links, so the link will be open till tomorrow morning 12. So those who wish to register for the exam, they can register in the same on the same link and send the screenshot of the number which is provided. So you will be registered for this. And thank you guys for being patient and having a great session. Thank you, Ritam, for conducting a great session and being a wonderful instructor throughout the workshop. And yeah, so guys, today we are officially ending the workshop, and this is your small project which you did. So thank you for joining us. And if anything further workshops happen, we will surely notify you, and we will love to have your groups on board in the next upcoming workshops. Thank you guys.